Now, the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry is a big ministry. It has 9 statutory bodies under it. One of them is the Zambia Bureau of Standards. On today's edition of the Business Day, we want to learn what this body does. I'll be speaking in depth with Executive Director, Mr. Manuel Mutale, who will share with us what the mandate of ZABS is. We'll also visit some of the labs that they have at this great institution. My name is Paul Shingongo. I'm your host. Join me on this great journey. So coming to you from the ZABS office, and like I mentioned earlier, we're discussing the operations of the Zambia Bureau of Standards, and I'm with the Executive Director, Mr. Manuel Mutale. Welcome to Business Day.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's a pleasure to be on Millennium TV.
Great. Thank you for hosting us in this lovely office.
You're welcome. Yes, it's your national standards body.
Awesome. Our national standards body, we want, first of all, to even understand what exactly is the mandate of the Zambia Bureau of Standards.
Yes. Yeah, the Zambia Bureau of Standards is one of the 9 statutory bodies in the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry. And the Zambia Bureau of Standards has been in operation for quite some time. It was set up under what we called Cap 416 of the laws of Zambia. And under this act, we had a very, very broad mandate. And I think that's what creates a bit of misconception with the general public. So the Zambia Bureau of Standards is now operating under what we are calling the Standards Act number 4 of 2017 with a very, very refined mandate. So we are there as a national standards body to be able to offer standardization, testing to the business community.
Awesome. What really led to the splitting of the various agencies? I know there was a Zambia compulsory that was part of the ZABS now, which is no longer part. What led to that splitting of these agencies?
Thank you very much, Paul. I think that's a very, very valid observation that you make. You know, the Zambia Bureau of Standards under the Cap 416 where we're operating, you know, we used to be like most of the national standards body in most developing countries. We used to operate under what we called a one-stop shop. That means that, you know, from a cost point of view, this model was very, very popular amongst developing countries. So under this model, you do standardization, you do testing, you maintain certification schemes, and also you do training. And above all, we're also doing metrology services. Now, this model creates an inbuilt conflict of interest. And most of the developed countries have not adopted this model. You know, so it created a need within the country that, you know, because we are part of the World Trade Organization, we needed to refine our model so that it suits with our trading partners. So hence the enactment of the Standards Act number 4 of 2017. And under this act, Paul, what's happening with the Zambia Bureau of Standards is just we are a focused national standards body and calling ourselves a friend of industry. What that means is that we're just there to support industry with standardization. What are the standards that they require? We promulgate those. What testing services do they require? We set up and get our labs accredited to make sure that, you know, the industry is saved. And then above all, we are in the space of offering voluntary certification services. So at the moment, the biggest change to come to answer your question is that we are no longer a regulator. Meaning that, you know, anything to do with enforcement of compulsory standards is no longer sitting with ZABS. That's the biggest change. And then, of course, the other change is that we are not doing any metrology services. This is now under the mandate of the Zambia Metrology Agency. So those are the big changes that occurred in the Zambia Bureau of Standards.
When you say you are a friend of the industry and you also point out the fact that now you are doing free certification, does that mean people are no longer paying for certification?
No, when we say voluntary certification services, these are schemes where industry should be able to voluntarily undergo audit services. It's more a self-declaration of compliance to quality. So in other words, you are not there because the law requires you to get your products audited. That's the difference between a mandatory standards, which is now a preserve of the Zambia Compulsory Standards Agency, and the voluntary certification scheme that the Zambia Bureau of Standards is offering. They will have to pay for these services, but the difference is that you don't have to compel them to be able. But it's a once you acquire that mark on your product, it gives you that competitive advantage that, you know, an independent body has been able to carry out the audit and attested and say that your products are complying to national standards.
Now, I would want us to get into the details of the operations of ZARS, but before that, we saw March last year where COVID-19 came on the scene. Many institutions, both private and government, were affected. How was ZARS affected?
Yes, when COVID impacted last year, you know, it was a question of, you know, it's something that will go away. But we are now with COVID, you know, in the 2021. So from Zambia Bureau of Standards, we were impacted both internally and externally. Internally, because we had to abide as a quasi-government agency, we had to abide by the regulations or the guidelines from government, cabinet office, in particular in terms of our work procedures. So we had to do some internal schedules where staff were alternating. So obviously this impacted in terms of, you know, the way we offered our services. And then also there's an impact in terms of our clients. Our clientele, some of them had to shut down, either temporarily. And like I said, in terms of our mandate, we're offering these voluntary certification services. They require getting on site of clients to be able to carry out, you know, audits and assessments. If your client is closed down, it means that you cannot be able to get there. So this impacted our numbers. So that's from the negative side. But I think from the positive side, the COVID impact has created a lot of innovations among its various service providers. As Zambia Bureau of Standards, in order to answer to these challenges of physical audits that we are required to carry out, we have now innovated. We're able to do what we are calling online audits, online certification systems. And this called for, you know, capacity building internally so that we're able to engage our clients and be able to do some preliminary, you know, audits on the various schemes that we do, so that, you know, we do not, you know, necessarily have to get to client premises to be able to conduct these audits.
But now, talking about still COVID-19, we saw the mushrooming of various products helping to prevent COVID-19. Talking of, for example, the hand sanitizers. Many people wondered, many consumers outside there wondered how safe those products were, and would wonder where ZABS was coming in, because we saw different types. Yes. We covered different stories of people skin peeling by using particular hand sanitizer brands.
Yes.
What was your role there? Do we have laboratories here that can test things like hand sanitizers?
Yes, I think that continues on the trajectory of, you know, the innovation and the business opportunities that the COVID created, both locally and internationally. You know, in Zambia, we saw, you know, in the sector that we operate in, we always say standards are need-driven. With the pandemic of COVID, it created a need for us as a national standards body to be able to quickly move into the space and be able to promulgate national standards that will answer to this pandemic. And I'm very glad that, you know, we had to quickly come in and, you know, had to adopt some international standards for some, you know, medical face masks. We also had to do some standards, you know, for some reusable, you know, cloth face masks. We also had to do a lot of standards relating to hand sanitizers, the hand rubs, and even some various soaps that are utilized, you know, during this pandemic. So for Zambia Bureau of Standards, over that period, we were extremely busy, you know, because we saw big industries, you know, like trade kings themselves enter into this space. We saw the SMEs enter into this space and be able to come up with products that should be able to be on the market and protect the general public. To come to your question in terms of, you know, the challenges, like any other new products coming on the market, yes, there could be some of those teething challenges. But we always encourage our customers and the general public to be very, very wary, especially when they buy products. Get products from well-established premises, because you are sure that these products would have been checked. These products would have gone under some certification. So we are very, very satisfied as Zambia Bureau of Standards with the response that we created to make sure that in a very short period of time, standards were there, testing facilities were there, and the regulators, like the Zambia Medicines Regulatory Authority, we collaborated with them very, very well, because ultimately they hold the responsibility for licensing of most of these products which fall under medical sundry category. So I think we, as a nation, we responded quite well to make sure that, products were available to be able to respond to the challenges of COVID.
But now, when it comes to the certification process of these products, I've interacted with the consumers on the market who have shared their own ordeals when it comes to the process. They claim the process is tedious. They claim the fees are high. They claim the time it takes for their product to be certified is too long for them to wait, and that is why they resort to selling things that are not certified. I would want to hear from you whether these claims are genuine or not. What is the process, and how costly or how cheap is the process of certification?
Yes, I think later on I may have to comment on, we understand and we always hear, the responses and the feedback from our clients. But I also need to state that, the clients have to understand that, the environment in which we're operating in is an environment where trade will not only be restricted to the boundaries of our country, but we have to trade across the borders. Trading across the borders means that our systems should be able to match the quality systems or quality infrastructure of our trading partners. So it means fundamentals like, getting our labs accredited, international recognition are very, very paramount. So it's these requirements to be able to benchmark with the best at international level that drives the costs of testing. Because you want your products tested in an accredited laboratory so that, that test report that you have, you can be able to utilize it, in the international markets. So we want to appeal to the business community that they should be able to look beyond a very, very simple test result from an accredited laboratory. They should be able to look at the bigger picture and the investment that the government has made in the Zambia Bureau of Standards in terms of the quality of the test results that will come from an accredited laboratory. That's where the difference is.
How long is the process of certification?
Yeah,
and how much is there a range of particular products? Okay, if you certify this product, it takes this amount and this long. I think that is what also the people out there want to know from ZABS.
Yeah. So further, in terms of recognizing that, there are bigger players and there are smaller players, what we did in as far as our certification scheme is concerned is that, we introduced sometime in 2019 what we are calling the Certified Local Supplier Scheme. This was a sort of a second tier scheme where, at 500, kwacha maybe for testing, 500 for additional certification process, we can be able to test the product like peanut butter, a product like, some cereals and other related products, and be able to put them on the market. So we want to appeal to the small and medium enterprises to ride on this scheme, because it's a scheme that was specially made for those people that can not be able to afford our, what I can call our diamond scheme, which where we put the ZABS quality mark on the product. So what we are promoting is dialogue. We want to hear the customers. We want to hear industry. Like I said in my opening remarks, we are a friend of industry. If we're a friend of industry, as far much as possible, we want to dialogue without in any way compromising on the quality of the services that we offer. Remember, with the certification mark, Paul, what we are doing is that we are assuring the public that this product has undergone very stringent checks. So to be able to assure those stringent checks, there's a cost associated with it because the public requires to be protected. Remember, there is the industry which is claiming conformity of their products that they are producing, but there's the silent public which ZABs will have to answer to. So that's where I think the balance has to be. But we are not quiet and be able to insist that, industry has to pay very, very huge fees.
So you can confirm that the fees are not expensive?
The fees, we've got, like I've said, we've got this second tier system that should be able to answer for the SMEs. Those who are only producing, in a backyard, and then they just want their products to be looked at and be able to be put on the market. So we've got a scheme for those. Then we've also got a scheme, for the top clients that want their products to go beyond the borders of, our country. So we've got this two-tier system that should be able to meet the needs of both clients.
I want to know if there are particular products that ZABS certifies.
They are broad. So we're able to certify bottled water. We're able to certify fruit juices. We're able to certify cement. We're able to certify steel. So like we said, standards are needs driven. Recently, we've come up with a national standards, on tiles. Because these floor tiles are now being produced locally. There's companies that have now entered into these markets. So these standards are living documents. And it's industry. Being a friend of industry means that industry should be able to say, we want in this sector. As a bureau, we can have a national standardization strategy in place. But industry have got a voice. They should be able to dictate to us, these are the sectors where we want new standards to be promulgated. So basically, when you look at certification, you can be able to certify any particular products. And I think at international level, because ZABS is a member of the International Standardization Organization, we are not short of standards. We can, at very short notice, be able to adopt a standard and be able to certify various products against that particular standard, as long as we are able to test conformity to that particular standards. So it's very, very broad. I think it's literally a blank sheet that we are giving to industry. We are there to serve them.
As a friend of the industry, which you keep emphasizing,
yes.
How well have you carried out awareness programs in the community for them to know the services you are offering and how easy it is for them to access those services?
Yes. Very important question. Because we are now focused much more to industry, you see that we are not so widespread geographically, into the country. Because we need centralized laboratories. And then at the moment, we run some satellite laboratory in Chipata to be able to provide support to the groundnuts value chain. We have also got another laboratory, a satellite laboratory in Mongo, where we are supporting the cashew, value chain, because of how much the government has pumped into the Mongo, the Western Province cashew value chain. But otherwise, in terms of now the core services of standardization, these are marshaled centrally from our offices here in Lusaka. But we continue to engage, including a program like this, Paul. It's one way of ensuring that we engage clients. We engage clients through the Zambia Association of Manufacturers. We engage through the Zambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And also, the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry is well spread through the provincial cooperative offices. So we continue to engage our clients also through these provincial offices to make sure that at any time, we've got a very active space now on social media. So I do not think that industry is in any way, affected in terms of accessing our services.
Let's move to regional trade. We saw recently Zambia signing to the African Continental Free Trade Area. How will we ensure that the products coming from other countries also meet the national and international standards?
Yes, and I think from ZAB's point of view, our focus is to make sure that the products that are being produced in Zambia access these markets. That's the angle. You benefit from the Africa Continental Free Trade Area or any other regional economic groupings by making sure that you are also able to export these products to other countries. The principle of international trade, especially from the national quality infrastructure point of view, is that you should have one standard, one test accepted everywhere. That's a principle that we have. What that means, Paul, is that we should be able as a region to harmonize our standards. If we say that we've got a national standards for maize, that standards, the requirements that are in that standard should be the requirements that are in Zimbabwe, which are in Tunisia, which are...
Is that the case now?
That is what we are working towards, because ZABS is a member of what we call the Africa Organization for Standardization, ASO. So at ASO level, the standards are being harmonized. Once these standards are harmonized, we adopt them as a country. So once we adopt these standards, then the next step is that how do you demonstrate that the requirements in that particular standards are complying? What the industry is producing is complying to those particular standards. That's why you now have the testing laboratories. Then how do you place reliance on those laboratories? That's why we have what we call accreditation, meaning that laboratory should have an international recognition to be able to make sure that once you issue a test report, that report should be accepted, in the region of trade, like in this particular case in Africa. So these are the benchmarks that we are working towards. And then later on, we talked about certification. So meaning if you come to ZABS and we certify your products, then we'll be saying that that product is complying to a standard, that product has been tested in an accredited laboratory, and we are placing a quality mark on it so that it can be able to trade not only in the nation, but also in the region. That is the benchmark. That's a principle that we are supposed to follow through. But clearly, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is in formative stages. So the approach that we are taking as ZABS and even most other countries is to be able to promote what are called mutual recognition agreements, because we are yet to harmonize all the standards of the products that will be commonly traded in the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So because of that, we want to engage industry to be able to come to their national standards body, engage us on the products where they are facing challenges in terms of export to the desired markets. So we want a company that is producing electric cables to be able to say we are facing problems in this particular market. Then we engage our colleagues in that particular, the National Standards Board, and be able to make sure that, we facilitate that trade through these mutual recognition arrangements.
What exactly are you doing now as a statutory body in charge of standards in the country to support SMEs, especially with coming in of the African Continental Free Trade Area? What exactly are you doing to help, especially the SMEs?
Yes, the SMEs, we are helping them under the scheme that I talked about earlier on. We've got the scheme, which is called the Certified Local Supplier Scheme. So the SMEs should be able to come on this scheme and be able to have that appreciation of quality. So in this scheme, we go for what we call safety parameters in a particular product. If someone is producing, say, peanut butter, we want to make sure that, that peanut butter is, say, free from aflatoxins. That peanut butter is free from some other contaminants, other pathogens. In other words, this scheme emphasizes on what we call the basic safety parameters of a particular product. So once an SMEs are satisfied on this particular scheme, then we can graduate them to the other robust schemes. And then from there now, their products can be able to trade in the region. So I think there has to be that recognition that, this is a gradual process, and the SMEs have to embrace quality. By embracing quality, they can do that by making sure that they engage a national standards body like Zambia Bureau of Standards, which is a friend of industry, to be able to, hold them and work with them on this particular journey.
Now, just recently, we saw the Minister of Agriculture, the government announcing the ban on the importation of table potatoes and onions. And this was not received well by most chain stores, especially the foreign chain stores, because they claimed that the local farmers do not have the capacity to supply. Even when they have the capacity, the quality is not guaranteed. And yet we have ZABs in place.
Yes.
How are you helping in this regard? Because immediately after that announcement, we even saw a shortage of onions and table potatoes in the country, surely indicating that the quality is not guaranteed.
We've had some test cases. Most of the times, it's not so much the issue of quality. Okay, I need to qualify and be able to say that, in terms of, the mandate to determine, which product should come into the country, like you rightly said, that's beyond the mandate of ZABs. In terms of the decisions on, which product should come in the country, that's outside the mandate of the Zambia Bureau of Standards. But limiting ourselves to a mandate that we are familiar with, which is on quality issues, we've had some cases where, some of the best honey which is produced in the country, we've tested it, we've certified it, and like I'm saying, our labs are competent enough to be able to certify most of these products. But if this product cannot get into some regional market or some chain stores, it is for reasons other than quality. So we'll continue to promote, Zambian products. We will continue to demonstrate that, 70% of our national standards, the requirements in those standards are based on international standards. Like Paul, I will be able to give you an example. We've got cement, which is produced in Zambia. The national standards that we have for cement is based on an EU standard, which is a European standard. So it means once that cement is produced by any of our many cement manufacturing companies, that cement is complying to EU requirements. And if that cement is tested in a certified laboratory like the one that we have at the Zambia Bureau of Standards, then we have no reason for that cement not be able to access, the various markets where, they desire. So the point I'm driving is that, as a national standards body, we are careful enough to make sure that, the building blocks of trade in terms of standards, testing, and certification are in compliance to the international requirements. The other dialogue now of these products cannot be able to access this market because, they are not complying, that we want to talk about with
I would want to know, you've mentioned in depth the various products that you're able to certify as ZABs.
Yes.
What kind of laboratories do you have here?
Yes. We've got broad laboratories. At the moment, I think we're running with 9 laboratories. We've got, the microbiology laboratory. This is a lab where you can be able to test pathogens in the various food products. We've got, the petroleum lab. We collaborate very well with the Energy Regulation Board to make sure that, the fuels that are being consumed in the country are complying to standards. We've got the condoms laboratory. We collaborate with the Zambia Medicines Regulatory Authority to make sure that the consignment of some of these products, be them condoms or, the examination gloves, are complying to our national standards. So basically, as a paints laboratory, to look at, the paints that are being manufactured, in the country. But we also have a very interesting lab, which we call the Mineral Value Chain Lab. Because recently, government has been looking at, mechanisms to make sure that they monitor, the minerals and, the exports that are coming from the mining industries. So ZABS is one of those labs that is on that particular project. And we are working very, very well with the Geological Survey to make sure that, there's that collaboration so that we know what ultimately is being declared into these hotspots. So we are operating more like an umpire lab. So we've got labs that are able to answer to the needs of Zambian industry. But looking forward, Paul, we've got now setting up a solar lab, because you've seen the country, there's quite a lot of solar products that have come on board. So we are working with the Energy Regulation Board and establishing, some laboratories that should be able to test most of these solar products that have come into the country.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned a very important lab, which brought some different views from the stakeholders. The condom lab. We
Yes.
saw the case of the honeybee. We saw the case of the gloves, which have to be recorded in conjunction with ZAMRA. Where was ZABS when condoms that were defective were being supplied on the market?
Thank you very much, Paul. I knew you were right on that, but clearly, Zambia Bureau of Standards was there, and we did our work, and we submitted the results. And like you keep saying that, we at all times want to be very ethical. In our industry, we submit results to our clients. So it's not our nature to be able to share these results with third parties. So it's very, very important in the conformity assessment procedures, and in particular in testing work, that once a client comes to you, they submit their samples, you test, and your obligation is to make sure that you give them the test results for them to be able to make their decisions. And I think Zambia Bureau of Standards did their work. When you say where was ZABS, we did our work, and we gave the results to the competent authorities, and I'm sure the competent authorities have been making appropriate decisions, over the matters.
I would ask further on that one,
Yes.
Mr. Mtale. When a client comes to ZABS
Yes.
for testing a particular product,
Yes.
and you find that the results show it will be harmful to the public, do you give recommendations to the client that comes, or your duty is just to give the results and you leave it up to the clients to do whatever they want?
Remember, there is what we call the regulatory mandates. In other words, the public has to be protected from harmful products. And the national quality infrastructure operates in a manner where there are competent regulators in each sector. Like the energy sector, there's the Energy Regulation Board. If you go to the water sector, you find there's NWASCO and, the various water companies under there. If you go to food products, there's a combination of, the public health, and also the Zambia Compulsory Standards Agency, regulates some of these products. So you can see that the coverage is wide enough to make sure that the public are protected. So these regulators now will use testing laboratories which are in the country, Zambia Bureau of Standards being one of them, to be able to test these products and make their regulatory decisions. So the system works in a manner where, the public has to be protected. And at the moment, I think it's working very, very well.
If a client comes, I'll give an
Yes.
example of peanut butter.
Yes.
They come with peanut butter for testing, and your test review that this is not good for consumption,
Yes.
and the client walks away. Tomorrow you find a product you mentioned that is not safe on the market. What does ZABS do in that case?
Yeah, so the competent authority which is mandated to be able to monitor that particular product, like say, drawing you from peanut butter, let me take say bottled water. Bottled water is subject of a compulsory standards, which is monitored and regulated not only by Public Health Department, but also by the Zambia Compulsory Standards Agency. So the mechanism that the Zambia Compulsory Standards Agency will have is to be able to monitor the products as they are being produced, to give them a permit before they come on the market, including say peanut butter. Before it comes on the market, give it a permit, and then as the product is being sold on the market, there's what we call surveillances to monitor. So just between you and me, it means that, if we come on peanut butter or bottled water brought to us, obviously it will be brought to us by a regulator. If we pick something at a very shortest notice, we'll make sure that that regulator is aware that this product has got these issues, so that they move in the shortest possible time to be able to act on that particular product. So the assurance I want to give is that, the quality infrastructure system works in a manner where it should be able to protect the public. And the various players, the various sector players, in the national quality infrastructure system have to make sure that they fulfill their roles ultimately to protect the general public.
In conclusion, Mr. Mtale, I'm aware that in 2019, ZAMS launched the 2020-2022 National Standards Strategy.
Yes.
You are in charge of certification of products. Now, how many standards have been published this year, and are you able to share with us the sectors in which these standards are coming from?
Yeah, not specifically the sectors, but we'll be glad to say that, cumulatively, the Zambia Bureau of Standards has published over 6,000 national standards. Okay? Like I said, when people review the cumulative number of standards, they may feel that, we are lagging behind in comparison to our trading partners. Because at global level, say, if we talk about ISO, there is, I think, in total, over 20,000 international standards. But remember, standards are needs driven. So we only have to adopt and publish those which are relevant to our economy. Okay? In terms of, where industry is producing, certain products. So we are happy with the pace that we are moving on. You make mention of the National Standards Strategy. Yes, that strategy was implemented with various stakeholders, and it's matched to our 7th National Development Plan. So you are able to identify the sectors where you are strong in, sectors which are emerging, and you make sure that the standardization needs of those sectors is well catered for. So that's where we are, and I think we keep pushing as a national standards body.
Great. Finally, I would want your comment. People from the rural part of the country usually complain that you don't cater for them. Very few officers, if any, in the rural part of the country. Why is that, if that is the case?
I think the people, when we used to be operating under CAP 416, our mandate was broad because we had to go into all the provincial centers, because the inclination under CAP 416 was that of protecting the public in terms of enforcement of compulsory standards. Now, that's the mandate of our sister agency, the Zambia Compulsory Standards Agency. And you see that agency has got offices in almost all the provincial centers, making sure that they are in Chinsali, to see that, in Isoka, the goods that are being consumed are complying to standards. The Zambia Bureau of Standards now, in line with its mandate as a friend of industry, we have to go where there's industry, where there is production, where there's industrial activity, because that's our focus now. So yes, we are now fully fledged in Lusaka, very robust on the copper belt. Most of our inspectors are continuously there, and we've got plans not far from now to be able to open a regional office. And like I said earlier on, we've got some satellite presence in Eastern Province and also in Mongo. So yes, wherever there's industrial activity emerging, the Zambia Bureau of Standards, will be there, not necessarily physically, but we schedule our inspections, to make sure that we monitor and support the emerging industries, even in rural areas.
Thank you so much for hosting us, Mr. Mtale.
Thank you very much, Paul. It was a pleasure to be on the Millennium TV, and we hope this is not the last time that you are visiting us, because we continuously need to engage the public through the media organizations.
Our team will keep on knocking on your door.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're discussing the operations of the Zambia Bureau of Standards. I was at the office with Mr. Manuel Mtale, the Executive Director for the Zambia Bureau of Standards. For now, we'll check exactly what's happening at the labs, and we will close from there. So stay tuned. You're watching Business Day on Millennium TV.
You're watching Millennium TV.
So you're still watching the Business Day on Millennium TV, your first financial and business channel. Now, like I said, we are at the Zambia Bureau of Standards, and right here is the microbiology lab. I'm sure these are some of the things that you are familiar with, some of the products that we find on the market. Want to understand what they are doing with these products, what they do in the lab. So we're with Mr. Chira, who will share with us in detail what they do in the lab. Welcome to Business Day. So what exactly happens in this lab?
This is the microbiology laboratory. This is one of the labs at Zambia Bureau of Standards. And as you can see, these are some of the products which we analyze here. And there are various products. There's water, beverages, and food samples. And this is bottled water. And this water, we check about 3 parameters. We check for total coliform. We also check for fecal coliform. We check this product to see that if in this product is present or not. Because as per our standard, it states that in this bottled water, this is fit for human consumption. This water should not contain any fecal matter. So as our law, as a Bureau of Standards, we ensure that we check if it contaminated that particular organism or not. And you'll see this is also sugar. Also, it's one of the products which we'll receive in the lab. We also test for various microorganisms to see if it contains this particular organism. The standard, we follow the standard which stipulates each and every parameter. So as our law, as I said earlier for the water, also check if this sugar household is fit for human consumption. There's also SMEs who brought samples for testing. And this is vegetable, cabbage, which was dried using the hand drying machine and also the machine. So these SMEs also bring samples to test if it's fit for human consumption, and it's also if it goes alongside with our standard. As you are aware that Zambia standard, it's not only for testing, it's also prepare the standards for each and every product, as you have seen here.
How long does it take? Let's give an example. What is this? This is rice?
This is rice, yes.
How long does it take for you to finish testing and for you to have the results?
Yeah, as per our company policy, for each sample, it takes about 7 working days. So if you bring a sample, expect your results after 7 days. Certain products like water, it takes about, just for do the analysis here in the lab, it takes about 5 days. Then the preparation of the reports and the preparation of the quotation, it takes about 2 days. So it sum up to take about 7 days.
Great. So these are records that you use?
Yeah. So when the client comes, we have a reception there where the client comes, bring the samples, and there's a gentleman there who handles the sample reception. And that gentleman, once the client comes, you present your sample, and you have got a system here where we have all the forms the client has to fill in the form. And this is one of the forms which is called sample submission forms. So we enter all the details of the client who brought the sample, the company, the contact name, and the type of the samples, and what is required in that particular sample. So the client will list, no, I want this product to test A, B, C, D. So this is the form. So once this form has been filled in and entered all the details for that particular sample, then this sample goes in the system. And if it goes in the system, depending which lab it's going to. So if it comes from microbiology, the supervisors will take up this form and assign to a particular technician to analyze that particular sample. So I received this form on the 22nd November, and these samples I've worked on already, just waiting to issue the results.
Great,
Yes.
great. Out of curiosity, what do you do with these products after you are done with the testing?
Yeah. So after we are done with the test, looking at the volume of the samples, we request the client to bring the sample size. We have got a policy which we need the client to submit that particular sample size. So we tell the client to bring at least maybe, let's say for water sample, maybe 3 bottled water samples. 1 sample will come for microbiology, and the other sample goes to chemistry, depending on what the client is looking for. Then the other sample, we keep it in the storeroom. We keep in the storeroom for verification, maybe if there's a query or not. So when I work on that particular sample, when I'm done, this sample, take it back to storeroom. And then after, when the results are issued out, the report is out, we still keep that sample. So you only dispose this sample after 3 months.
After 3 months?
Yes, after 3 months, these samples, we dispose them. And we have a system here which stipulates when to dispose the sample. So as a technician here, my job is just to analyze. Once I analyze, I take it back to the sample to the storeroom for storage purposes.
Mr. Chirwa, thank you so much for allowing us in your lab.
Thank you, you're welcome.
Great. Now, very interesting thoughts here. In case you want your products to be certified, please come through to the Zambia Bureau of Standards. We will still checking other labs right here on Business Day. Keep watching Millennium TV. Yes, wondering what this is, right? So this is diesel. We are now in the petroleum testing lab at the Zambia Bureau of Standards. We want to see what other things they do. Various petroleum products are tested here. Mr. Kafunda is a technician who will share with us some of the things they do in this lab. Welcome to the interview, Mr. Kafunda.
Thank you so much. My name is Bright Kafunda, Zambia Bureau of Standards, work as a laboratory technician. Right now we are in the petroleum lab, where I'll demonstrate how we analyze various petroleum products. But right now, with me, I'm holding a petroleum sample, which is a gasoline in other languages. So I will demonstrate on how we analyze this sample using this high-tech instrument, which have been newly acquired by the Zambia Bureau of Standards. This instrument is quite unique because it's able to give you variety of parameters which are so important for petroleum. So I'll go on and demonstrate. So go to measure, then I'll select the product, which is gasoline. Then I'll also enter the sample ID, which is TL3332 number 2. Now say OK. Right, so operator, of course, is Bright Kafunda, which is initials. Then I'll say run. Right.
So what are you trying to get after this?
Then I'm now trying to get the actual results for
Okay.
this product.
Okay.
Yeah, so just seconds. We should be able to see now all the parameters that this machine is able to give out.
And you have your results?
Yes, right there we have it.
Okay. So it doesn't take that long?
The minimum, maximum is 5 minutes. You have the.
Is it just because of this machine or even other machines?
Yes, so we have the results. Now, if you look at the screen there, you should be able to see that the machine is able to give us the variety. And out of this now, when I pick up our Zambian standards, these are the things that we are supposed to do. But this machine is able to give you extra. Yeah. So that's it. From here now, I'm good to go. I report.
Awesome.
That's right.
Awesome.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kafunda.
You are welcome.
Are these machines common in the country?
I wouldn't comment on that, but as it stands, I think we are the only one. We are the only one. So we are urging you, before you damage your car, you bring this product so that you can have it tested, so you know exactly what you are using.
What's the name of this machine?
In short terms, we call it FTIR, but analytics, they are the guys who are into the manufacture of these machines.
Thank you so much for allowing us in your lab.
You are most welcome, sir.
Great. Still watching Business Day. We were sampling some of the labs that are right here at the Zambia Bureau of Standards. We began with the microbiology lab and now with the petroleum testing lab. And this is where we have to end today's edition of the Business Day. I've been your host, Paul Shingongo. I'm back again next week at the same time. Keep watching Millennium TV.